Well, thanks everybody for joining this AMA between Axelar and Circle covering composable USDC. I'll let Sergey and Jonathan take it away without further ado.
Hey guys, great to be here. Hey Jonathan, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Sergey. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, awesome. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice to nice to see everyone this morning or hear everyone.
Cool. Do you wanna kind of start off, maybe give us a quick intro on yourself, what you do at Circle, and we can take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm a product manager here at Circle. My product is the cross-chain transfer protocol, CCTP, and hopefully a lot of you folks heard the announcement, saw the announcement at Converge, and yeah, we're really excited to be launching that on Ethereum and Avalanche by the end of this year. And we're working on plans to expand to some chains next year. And all that is within my product area. I work on the stablecoin infrastructure team. So there's a few other really interesting infrastructure projects in the works. And overall, the goal and kind of mission of the team is to support USDC infrastructure and enabling USDC to grow as an ecosystem and move around more quickly. That's me.
Awesome. No, amazing. Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm Sergey. I'm co-founder of Axelar. We're working on secure cross-chain communication infrastructure. So excited to chat here with Jonathan. Um, I guess, Jonathan, maybe for those of you that missed the announcement at Converge, do you want to summarize it quickly? What's the TLDR?
Yes, definitely. So I'm sure folks here are very familiar with bridging as an overall concept and as I guess, a use case, but also, a core infrastructure concept in Web3. And what Circle has done, what we've done here is we are about to release a bridge that works slightly differently. Well, maybe slightly is an understatement. It works differently from most bridges out there. And the goal of this bridge is aligned with the goal of the stablecoin infrastructure team, is to support the expansion and velocity of USDC and other Circle issued stables in the ecosystem. So the way the bridge works, well, the goal of all bridges, right, is to allow the movement of crypto assets between blockchains. And the way our bridge works is since Circle owns USDC, well, no, that's not necessarily a true statement. So Circle issues USDC, right? And in order to do that, we have smart contracts on every chain that we're on that mint and burn USDC natively. So leveraging that ability, what we can do is actually enable a user to move USDC across chains in a way that is more akin to teleportation than traditional lock and mint, or actually, you're not actually moving an asset, right, between the chains. You're making it disappear on the source chain and appear on the destination chain. And the way we do that is if you want to move, let's say, $1 million from Ethereum to Avalanche, we enable you to burn that $1 million. We generate a securely signed message. We help the user, well, the user actually has to do it themselves through a web app. That message gets moved between Ethereum and Avalanche, and then taken to Avalanche. The Avalanche mint contract reads that and mints you $1 million. So that is a quick overview of the CCTP. Let me know if I've missed anything.
Makes sense. And I guess like the difference between kind of a external right protocols that supported USDC movement versus this protocol is that you guys are kind of a burning and minting, right, being the owner of these assets and the contracts themselves, as opposed to like locking and unlocking, right? Like that's the key differentiator.
That's the key, and that's really important as well, and really special, frankly. I think one of the, like from a really interesting kind of strategic and product perspective, the reason we're able to do that is because we're a stable coin that wants to and is useful when it exists across chains, right? But a lot of other cryptocurrencies don't have that attribute, right? Like they're mostly kind of native and tied to their own chain. Yes, they get wrapped and represented in other chains, but they don't provide that same functionality. And there's not true fungibility. So that was a little tangent. To kind of get back to your point, though, I think it's useful to mention how other bridges tend to work. So the most common version we see out there are lock and mint bridges, where on the source chain, let's say you want to move $1 million USDC, that $1 million USDC gets locked up in a smart contract. There is some sort of message passing, whether it's decentralized or centralized, general or not. And you go to the destination chain, and the destination chain essentially issues you a representation, right, of your assets on the source chain. And that's not ideal for two reasons. One, you have honeypot hacking risk, and we've seen that to be a persistent issue, right? And then two, you have reduced capital efficiency because you've essentially had to double your money, right? Double the amount of assets out there in order to move them. So those are lock and mint bridges. There's another type of bridge that is quite similar, and essentially they're I don't know if people call these things yet, but they're like liquidity pool bridges. And while they're not locked up in a smart contract per se, like one-to-one, you do have large liquidity pools on each side that allow someone to put money into that liquidity pool and extract the same amount of money on the other side from a symmetrical liquidity pool. Well, maybe not necessarily exactly symmetrical in amount, but symmetrical in terms of flow and functionality. So liquidity pools suffer similar types of issues, right? So reduce capital efficiency because you have a ton of money backing these liquidity pools. And then depending on how the liquidity pool is structured, you could also have hacking risks.
Got it. Awesome. Makes sense. And I guess like the other part of it, and I think some of the stuff that we've been working right with Axelar and integrating with your bridge is ability to pass kind of a general state, right, or smart contracts, right? I think you talked about token transfers and like the way to orchestrate it, right? And I think some of the work that we've been doing at Axelar and our vision is like token transfer is only one of the primitives, right, that you can use to connect different ecosystems, but with messages being sent and cross-chain contract calls, you can actually build very interesting applications where in some use cases the assets don't even have to move, right? If you're taking a loan against your asset on one chain with a currency on it or with a token on another chain, you don't actually have to move the asset, right, necessarily. Mm-hmm. You can just send a message and kind of synchronize your contracts, and this is like a very different way of composing applications, right, without necessarily moving liquidity. So I guess before we go deeper into that, I'm curious, for you guys, why is it important to have USDC in many different ecosystems, right? And kind of how, in general, how you view the multi-chain space evolve over the coming years, and what are your hypotheses that you guys are working under?
Yeah, that's a big question and a great question. So I'll answer those kind of piecemeal, and if I forget the larger pieces of the question, we can kind of go back to those. But one of the core assumptions that we're operating under is that we will all live in a multi-chain world. We live in one now, but looking 5 years ahead into the future, we don't think that's going to change. If anything, the overall number of chains might go up, but you might see some consolidation and several large chains taking up most of the ecosystem. But regardless, a multi-chain world. And the reason why stablecoins are useful is because they give a stable, literally, right, economic base to the Web3 economy, to DeFi, not only DeFi, but all other economic activity that might occur on Web3 rails. So we're talking like mainstream consumer use cases, I strongly believe that we're not going to see mainstream Web3 adoption until there is currency stability that mirrors what we have in the in the TradFi world, right? TradFi systems based on central banks. I know that might be kind of heretical to some of the core principles of Web3, but I think that's a reality, and we're seeing that reflected right now. Payments via stablecoins is something a lot of people are working on, and to have payments via stablecoins be really useful, you're going to want stablecoins on every chain, and you're going to want those to be liquid, because in some ways chains represent operating systems, right? Different operating systems support different use cases, and a user might have a host of use cases that exist on a host of different chains, but they still want one currency, right, to kind of unite their asset base across all those chains. And that's where USDC comes in, and that's where the bridge comes in.
Awesome, makes sense. And I guess what is your answer? I think some of the comments that we've heard, right, about the Circle bridge is the centralization aspect of it, right? That kind of curious how you guys think about that. What's the what's your thinking around it?
Yeah. So the Circle bridge is definitely a centralized, generalized message passing service, right? And I think we need to take a step back and talk about centralization and decentralization as core concepts in Web3, and why people, when one is necessary and when it's not, right? Like there is, Web3 canon that says, hey, decentralization is everything, but decentralization has its flaws as well. And what you have to really understand to evaluate whether centralization or decentralization is good is actually incentive structures and game theory, because there in some ways blockchains and Web3, it's programmatic game theory, right? It's like game theory is where you can't break the rules, so you're truly bound to this game. And what is Circle's landscape in that? Well, we're not incentivized to ever cheat. USDC as a stablecoin is centralized and it's controlled by Circle. We have no incentive to change the price of it, to pump and dump, to take any malicious action on with USDC actually. And if you look at Circle's track record around that, it is reflected that people trust Circle, as reflected by the amount of USDC that's out there, and it is in our best interest, unequivocal best interest, to ensure that people continue to trust Circle. So if we want to maintain an ecosystem with our stable coins that never lose peg, right? They're not algorithmic, they're fully reserve backed. And we want more people to use it. The best way to do that, the most efficient and frankly, safe way to do that is by Circle controlling the keys and controlling the message passing. And again, this is under the core assumption that you trust Circle. And if you don't trust Circle, then you don't hold USDC. And we hope to gain your trust at some point in the future. And if you do hold Circle, if you do hold USDC, then you implicitly trust Circle. And I hope people realize that that's what they're signaling by holding USDC. So, we considered, hey, could we use a decentralized, generalized message passing structure in our bridge? And after thinking about it and doing the investigations, we realized it actually opens up the bridge to, partnership instability, right? Some strategic risk, and then also if these, let's say, third-party signers in the message passing layer, they get compromised or they change their incentive structure, we can't control that. So it reduces the amount of security in that bridge, which could ultimately undermine the trust in USDC, which is exactly the opposite of what we want to do.
Awesome, makes sense. I guess moving on, let's talk a little bit about the announcement that we made last week, right? Composing Circle bridge with Axelar general message passing.
Yep.
and for those of you that haven't seen it, kind of encourage you to go to the Circle blog and see one of the latest posts on it. There's also some documentation that we put online at bit.ly /composable USDC, so you can take a look. But on a very high level, what we're trying to do is to compose token transfer of USDC through the Circle bridge with Axelar general message passing infrastructure, right? And I think the benefits of it are actually quite immense. And curious, Jonathan, from your view, how you view it. But I guess just a couple of things to highlight. I think you can definitely build really chain agnostic applications with it, right? So as opposed to just sending tokens and USDC back and forth from one chain to another, you can do cross-chain contract calls that move USDC as a routing asset or liquidity between chains, and kind of compose, DEXs from one another or compose DeFi applications with one another. So I think that's, very, very exciting. Two, you can continue leveraging both of the infrastructure stacks, right? So everything offered by kind of Circle USDC bridge plus the Axelar infrastructure for monitoring, for relaying transactions, for the execution, for gas services, so that you don't have to pay gas on multiple chains and things like that. That's a second point. And then the third point, which I actually think is super exciting, you can compose security of the two objects, right? So meaning that you can wait for the Circle bridge to attest and move the coins, but you can also get a second layer attestation through the Axelar infrastructure stack and actually get the best of both worlds, right? The trust of security and the attestation of the Axelar decentralized network, and say that your messages will be executed if and only if two of the service providers have sort of approved these requests. So yeah, I guess on that, Jonathan, curious how you think about it, or are there interesting use cases you're excited about when we talk about this composition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. So one, I'll talk about a specific use case that I'm interested in, and then that exists now, and then I also want to talk about use case that might not exist yet, and how we might all move towards that together as an industry. So the first one is consumer payments. Circle does have a consumer payments team. We're working on some things there, and I'm sure there'll be some announcements coming. So I can't get too specific on that, but everyone makes consumer payments, so I think this is a very relatable topic. At the end of the day, I firmly believe that payments will probably be done in stablecoin, right? For just the same reason that we have Federal Reserve and we want to stabilize sovereign currencies. Now, if we go back and remember that one of our assumptions is we fundamentally live in a multi-chain world, but we also want to make consumer payments, you might be in situations where you want to pay a different chain, right? But your USDC is on a different chain. So you want to conduct a payment on Avalanche, but your USDC is all on Ethereum. What you can do now, and what you couldn't do before, right, is you can move USDC natively through the bridge. That's awesome. But what I think is the standard for a modern consumer experience is that you don't even have to think about that. So because we've built this permissionless infrastructure, what we're excited about for people to develop seamless consumer payment experiences, right? Like, can you just imagine, like, you're in a store, or let's say like one of your parents, right? They're in a store and they're excited about USDC and they're about to pay, and that vendor wants payment done. And it doesn't matter if it's Ethereum or Avalanche, actually. Like, the chain should almost be abstracted away, Like, my mom doesn't want to worry about what blockchain she needs to send payment to. She just knows she has this thing that is effectively a digital dollar, right? USDC, and she's going to pay this merchant. And the merchant shouldn't care where my mom's USDC is coming from. And the ideal experience is how it works now, which is essentially like one-tap payments. And with this bridge, and with really amazing developers out there we're getting closer to that. So that's a use case that I'm super excited about, and that I think frankly needs to exist, or we will not get to where we want to as an ecosystem.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, can I encourage, the developers or builders out there to check out the blog, right, and our docs for, an instantiation, how to instantiate these types of use cases. I think we also have a sample, demo app that we'll share a link, in the notes as well, where you can see how it's instantiated, where you can swap, one asset for another, or make a one-click payment, across different blockchains, everything with one click, without having to think about gas payments on multiple chains, without having to think about relaying. And so I'm totally with you that I think the UX and the experience, right, of using these applications has to continue improving to show its potential, right, to more and more users. So I'm incredibly excited that more builders and more communities are talking about UX simplification, and not just extension of services and addition of complexity. So it's great to hear that you guys are thinking along the same lines.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you've probably seen this headline. Folks have seen this headline in different forms, but Web3 has a usability problem. And that's not meant to be an impugnment, right? And it's not meant to throw shade. It's just true. And I think that's just nature of where we are in the evolution of Web3. And that shouldn't discourage people. It should get people excited. Like, that is the problem to solve right now. And like, what an amazing time to be working on this kind of thing, where we get to be the people addressing the usability problem. I mean, we're literally taking this like through evolutionary periods rather than like building on increments like we're doing in Web 2 right now.
Awesome. Makes sense. And I guess, maybe a last question from my side. How is the rollout of, your bridge protocol going to happen? Are you guys going to roll it out on some chains first, continue scaling it to other ecosystems? Yeah, can you share a little bit more around that?
Yeah, definitely. So the concrete plans that we've released right now is we're going to release the CCTP on Ethereum and Avalanche at first, right? So we're targeting end of the year or early next year. And we will be launching with key flagship partners like Axelar, right? Even though it's permissionless, we are taking the time to deliberately connect with great folks out there. And then, of course, once we release it, anyone can build on top of the bridge. In H1 2023, we have some really exciting plans that I can't discuss yet, but we will announce them as soon as we can. But generally, of course, like I can speak to that. We want to be on every chain that USDC is on natively, right? And this includes non-EVM chains. I think that's going to be really important as well. So there's a lot of interesting problems to solve, interesting things to be done. And as we roll out, we're going to really learn a lot. So that's something I'm personally excited about. We have a lot of hypotheses on volume, on frequency, on use cases. And once we get to see the reality of the product making contact with customers, we'll be able to identify new pain points and points of friction and build new features on the bridge to further improve end user usability, which has kind of been a theme for everything I've mentioned. Is at the end of the day, we have to remember that people are using Web3, people are using USDC, people are using Axelar. And how do we make those experiences really seamless, really great? They have to be on par and better than TradFi and Web3 payment experiences, or we're never going to gain adoption.
For sure. Awesome. Totally agree with you. Anything else you want to add, or anything you want to discuss?
Yeah, I think we have 1 minute left, and what I'll add is kind of second part to that previous question around use cases is what I'm interested in exploring next year. And I'm not saying we have plans for this at all. This is literally just me riffing here, and I would love to see what the ecosystem and the Twitter sphere comes up with. But the bridge right now, right, the first use case is moving stable coins. We talked about some specific consumer verticals on that, but how might bridges be useful for other on-chain assets, right? Because like it's generalized message passing, so it doesn't have to be stablecoin. It could be anything, right? NFTs, like how my bridges work with NFTs. I don't know. I've kind of thought about it, and the NFT world is still very young as well. Other primitives that are kind of a take on NFTs, so like maybe on-chain titles and mortgages, things like that. I'm really curious to see what grows out of the bridge next year for things besides stablecoins.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Makes sense. So sounds great. Jonathan, it's been awesome chatting with you. Again, for those that want to learn more, check out some docs on our website, docs.axelar.dev, or look at the blog at the Circle blog. You can get started with a Circle bridge with Axelar general message passing, and let's continue building towards making the ecosystem a lot simpler to use.
Yeah, thanks, Sergey. It was great chatting with you as well. Hope to do it again.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan, for joining us. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.